Evening, everyone. Ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls, children of all ages, we find ourselves occupying a land in Germany at the moment steeped in motorsport history. From its opening way back in the 1920s, the Nurburgring Nordschleife has seen and breathed motorsport. From the early years of Formula One in terms of terrifying safety representation and track side safety being absolutely nothing, right the way through to present day DTM and GT3 racing, where the quality of drivers on offer have been outstanding. And tonight, ACC Race Nation is round number 5 here at the Nurburgring. I'm Jack Millington, your commentator, as always, as part of Season 9 here at this wonderful circuit. We are already in the midst of qualifying. We are halfway through practically at the moment. 11 minutes and 48 seconds left on the clock. There is quite a lot to get through today because the drivers are going to have the biggest mental challenge that they will face all season. It's not just your standard 1 hour race that you would typically have as part of ACC Race Nation. It is a 2 hour race, and around this circuit your knowledge of the track will help you so far, but then it will come down to your concentration, and it will also come down to your ability to keep it on the black stuff, on the tarmac. One line wrong and that might just be the end of your race. So we're currently following Tom Creed at the moment in the Mustang. The reason why we're following Tom Creed is he was exceptionally quick the last time we raced here at the Nurburgring Nordschleife. I say raced, that would be a bit of a gross exaggeration. We did qualifying, and then ACC sadly decided to collapse via the servers. So we are rerunning qualifying, which we're currently in at the moment. Tom Creed was the fastest that day, and it's ideal to keep up with him. Now, admittedly, it has been a little bit of time since we last raced as part of ACC Race Nation. It's practically been a few weeks. What I mean by a few weeks is Tom comes across the line to start his first and what could potentially be of 2 laps around the Nordschleife. Last time we raced was at Imola, and we're going back a few weeks, to be frank. When we raced around there, there was no stream that day, unfortunately. So I will tell you the drivers' standings in a little while. But it's been 3 weeks since the drivers last saw action around the championship, and we have currently 17 drivers in the lobby. We know a few people were unable to make it, which is a great shame. But we can go through the cars that we have out on track. So let's return to the garage. We'll go through the names of those that are here. So we've got Kevin McEntee in the McLaren. We've got Ross Harris in the Lamborghini Huracan, the Evo 2. We also have John Wells in the Mercedes AMG. Tom Creed we've already covered. We've got Mark Chapman in the Ferrari. We've got our reigning champion Steve Hall. We've got Daniel Danu out there in the matte green McLaren. We've got Eden Peckman in the Ferrari 296. Michael van der Waal in the McLaren, Tony Manley in the Aston Martin V8 Vantage, Jordan Harding in the Mustang. We also have Dennis Penders. We've got the shining star of the last few races, Tony Sokolov, in the Ferrari 296. We also have, in the number 68 Ferrari 296, we've got Scott Clark, who we've just seen blast. We've actually just seen another car blast down the main straight, and that was Steve Hull. We have a newcomer in for this evening. We've got Big Jeff 1982. We'll talk more about him in a little bit. And, of course, we've got Josip Kosic as well in the BMW. He's yet to set a lap time. But Big Jeff in the Ferrari. We've got a couple of times on the board. So Steve Hull, we just saw blast past the start-finish straight. He's done at 8:29. Ross Harris has done 8:33. No more time now for the drivers left really to set a lap time. Jordan's going to be the next one to come along. Obviously, there are only 7.5 minutes left in the time around here. As Jordan goes second, the time round here, I think the lap record is an 8:10. So certainly not going to be enough opportunities. Yeah, it's an 8:08.006 by Daniel Kalewitz in a Ferrari in 2023. So that's the lap record. So definitely not going to be enough time for the drivers to be able to pull that off. Whilst we cycle through the drivers, I'm just seeing Jordan's obviously on his lap. Tony Manley currently around the first section of the track, or if you want to call it, that's the first section of the old circuit, if you want to go that far back to it. Going through this really fast left-hander and then on the brakes hard down into the right-hander. Second gear for Tony in the Aston Martin. Just so you're aware, just to give you an identity of Big Jeff 1982, who is our newcomer for this season. Excuse me. There's Mark Chapman there, just pushing his way through the first part of the lap, really, on the GP Streck loop, if you want to call it that. He's now onto the original circuit, built in the long time ago, as Nordschleife has been around. Crikey, it's been around for a long time. I think we're coming pretty much up to its 100th anniversary soon. Excuse me, I do have a cough today, which is a shame. Just to say though about the identity of Big Jeff, let's scroll through to him. There he is. Get a nice camera angle of his day glow green Ferrari with some yellow and red stripes. So this is Jeffrey Van Buren. He's a Dutch driver. He selected that Ferrari, so good to see him on track. And it's his first start of the season. So let's see how he gets on. So quite a few people, sadly, who aren't in here this evening. The most notable is Simon Whiting. He didn't finish last time out at Imola. He's 6th in the championship at the moment, is Simon, so he's not here this evening. Nor is, I don't believe, Martin van Reenen is here either, nor Neil Wright. So 3 of the top 10 aren't racing this evening. So that's a bit of a shame. Now, Steve's time has been knocked off the top spot by Tony Sokolov. So he's currently provisionally pole in the Ferrari 296. We're following Josip at the moment. He's still on the 1984 GP loop. That's when this part of the circuit was developed. As part of the 24-hour loop, he clips through the curbs there. We can see that the next car to set a lap time will be John Wells. Or will he set a lap time? Is he about to go on one? I think it looks like he's about to go on a lap. So he's going to cross the line in a couple of seconds' time. There he goes. And he goes 5th with that effort. So he was on a lap, despite the timing tower telling us otherwise. It's an 8:38 from John. He said he was aiming to get to the finish tonight. But at the moment, he's on the 3rd row of the rolling grid start. So he'll be happy with that. Dennis Penders going down the main straight. You can't really call it a straight at the Nordschleife. It is immensely long. It's doing 176 miles an hour in that Ferrari. Key consistency is getting this last chicane right. If you brake a little bit too late, you can skate off the road and onto the curbs, and that'll jettison you into the air. A little bit of a wiggle on the exit for Penders, but what will this lap time be? As he comes across the line, he goes 5th place with an 8:37, so half a second quicker pretty much than John. He's got time to do one more lap. And I think the next driver to come along and set a lap time will be Daniel Danu. Oh, here he comes in. He's just gone 2nd with that effort, has Daniel. So that's an 8:28. So that's 10 seconds quicker than what John Wells did when he set a 5th place time. Let's look at the drivers. So Tony Sokolov, 13 seconds clear of Daniel Danu at the moment. It's very close between the 2nd through to 4th. And I say it's close. This is a huge circuit. So 2 seconds isn't that much in truth. Adam Peckman. He's just gone onto a lap. So we're looking at Tom Creed to next set a lap time in the Mustang GT3. He comes across the line. And that's much more like it from Tom Creed. It's an 8:16.9. Great effort. And that'll give Tony Sokolov something to think about. Don't forget, Tom Creed, last season's runner-up in the ACC Race Nation, so he knows how to put a lap time on the board and put a good race together. Oh, and Kevin McAtee's in the wall and he's round. And that's literally what I said a couple of seconds ago, didn't I, ladies and gentlemen? You've got to be careful with your braking zone for that corner. If you brake too late, the curbs will jettison you into the air, and that's exactly what's happened. So Kevin McAtee, the best that he's going to be able to start is 9th, but there are a number of drivers still on a lap. Tony Manley is one of those, and he's done exactly the same thing at the same corner. He's gone off the road at the chicane. Will he set a lap time? Will he have invalidated it? Yes, he has. So he's got time to do another lap. He's got 38 seconds. Whether he got away with the damage is another matter. Next driver to come and set a lap time will be Big Jeff in that bright green Ferrari. And Big Jeff, aka Jeffrey Van Buren, has just gone into 6th position. So good effort. Time has now ticked over. So that is it. There's no more time left for drivers to set a lap. So this is it for them. Let's go and find Steve Hawley. He'll be the next car to set a lap time. And he is done. He's just gone off the road. He's invalidated his lap time. His car's a mess. So that is that for him. Where's Michael van der Waal? He'll be the next driver. He's in the last couple of corners before the main straight. So he's just coming into what is effectively the Schwalben Ben Schwans. That's literally what it's called, ladies and gentlemen. At the right-hander. And he's being very patient with the throttle. But now, he can get his car up to speed. And that McLaren will be using all of its horsepower available to it. We saw the Ferrari earlier doing 176 miles an hour. There's a yellow flag, but that shouldn't affect Michael van der Waal's lap. But he was doing 176 when he came down this corner here. And when we go into Antonius, this left-hander, He's going a little bit slow. He's got a little bit more downforce on the car as Van der Waal. 171 mile an hour for him. Right, in helmet camp. And what's this lap time going to be? I know it says 21 minutes in the left-hand corner. That won't be the case. What can he do? That puts him on the third row of the grid. So that gives him an 8-minute 31. I think he'd be quite pleased if he stays there. Well, Michael. John Wells still on a lap at the moment. The next car to come and set a lap time will be Tony Sokolov. We'll just ride on board with John as he goes through the most famous corner in motor racing, the carousel. You can see how much the car dips down into that corner, and then on the power goes the Mercedes. Big V8 in that car, really straddling the concrete part of the road there. Tom Creed's still on his lap. Jordan's in the pits. That's him done. Mark Chapman also in the pits. Steve as well. We're just trying to get to the Tony Sokolov. He's improving his lap in the Ferraris. 2 seconds up. Will this be a valid lap time? It will not be. It looks like he's invalidated it. So, the next driver to come up against him will be Josip Kosic in the BMW. Evening to you, Jordan, in the comments. If you are watching, do please comment. It'd be great to have a chat with you as the race goes on. We've got 2 hours together. Well, the BMW is charging towards the start-finish line. What's this lap from the BMW? It's a 8-minute 26. Puts Josip in a little bit of no man's land, has to be noted. In third place, it's a great lap time from him. We now have John Wells. We can get a nice camera angle. If we can ride on board with him, there we go, through the double right-hander, and then into what is effectively the plants garden, and then through Stefan Beloff. Yes! Oh! Did you see the way that the Mercedes lifted over the crest there? That was nerve-wracking, no doubt, for John. There are only 2 other drivers on a lap now. The other 2 being Scott Clark, and I believe it's Tony Manley as the other driver. But John Wells we are on board with. Let's ride from helmet cam. You'll see the elevation changes around this circuit. There's so much character in this track. John now fully on the throttle as he comes around the corner that leads onto this immense straight. And having said that, he has completely backed out of it. And that is John's lap run and done. So he must have thought he wasn't improving, decided against it. So we've got Tony Manley in the Aston Martin through this frightfully fast left-hander here. Down into 4th gear for the Aston Martin. Known as the muck curve he's just gone through, then the Klosterstelle. And he's into Stelstreck at this right-hander. Just got to keep it clean, has Tony. I know at the moment he's 12 seconds down on his last lap, but he could start in the top 10 quite comfortably here if he sets a legitimate and valid lap time. If we could skate over to Scott Clark, he's another one who could put himself in the top 10. Scott's had all sorts of issues this season. He's talked quite openly about them. He's had issues with his wheel, he's had issues with his connection, there's been all sorts of chaos. Into the really famous part of the circuit for the spectators. Into effectively Brunchen is what it's known as. 2 right-handers, loads of fans there, you can see them all static in the background. But this is looking like a relatively calm lap so far. Over the little jump. At the plants garden. And then into effectively the Beloff S's. Got to bear with me as we go through all the track corners. Obviously when it comes to sectors at the Nordschleife, they're not really done in the same way. There's not sector 1, 2 and 3. There's more like 15 sectors around this circuit. So if I say the first part of the lap, I think we're going to have to split it into quarters. But even then, that feels like a bit of a gross underestimation of the length of this track. Because of course the Nurburgring Nordschleife is immensely long. And if you're wondering how long it is, it's 25.3 kilometres, effectively 15.7 miles. It's got 170 corners. It is so vast, this circuit. There is a yellow flag, but that'll be just for the cars who are in the pits. So Scott Clark, he doesn't need to worry about that. We can ride on board with his POV. We can't tell what lap time he's doing. It says he's predicted a 31 minutes. We don't think that'll be the case. It won't take him 5 minutes to go from there to the start-finish line, unless he decided to get out of his car and walked. Here comes Clark then, towards the start-finish line. What lap will this be for the Ferrari driver? Puts him 12th for the time being. So Tony Manley was not on a valid lap. So that was the end for him. So that is our starting grid then for this 2-hour race. We've got Tony Sokolov on pole position. We then have, excuse me, sorry, Tom Creed in second place. Josip Kosic in third, with Daniel Danu in fourth. Fifth place is Steve Hull. Sixth is Jordan Harden, who's just said to me that his second lap he was 5 seconds up but ran wide on a corner, so it got invalidated. That's a shame for Jordan. Seventh place on the fourth row of the grid, we have Michael van der Wal, and we also have the new man himself, Big Jeff, aka Jeffrey Van Buren. Then it's Ross Harris and Dennis Penders on row 5, John Wells and Scott Clark on row 6. The drivers who didn't set a lap time include Kevin McEntee and Mark Chapman, one of the championship protagonists, down in 14th place. Eden Peckman is here in 15th, and Tony Manley didn't set a lap time either. He will start 16th, and of course your spectator will not be starting at all, but I am 17th. Jordan is also on a brand new wheel. The reason why Jordan gets a lot of plugs, ladies and gentlemen, is because he's in the stream and he chats. So if you like to comment, if you'd like me to have any predictions that you might have, please do put them through. I'm looking forward to seeing what people say. 2 hours is a long time. You know, it's a long time around this track. We'll be racing until 10 o'clock this evening, so quite a long way to go, and we'll try and catch as much of the action as we can. I fully expect there to be a few incidents, and it'll just come from the driver's own making, really. There we go, we are now lining up on the grid, so we've got a little bit of time. So we are waiting here at ACC Race Nation. Now whilst we are waiting, let's just have a quick run through of our driver standings. We've got 60 seconds left, so I'll make this as brief as we can. Stuart Packham leads the championship. He's on 88 points. Now, as you will have noticed, Stuart Packham is not here this evening, so he already has a drop score. He'll have another one, admittedly, today, via the fact that he's not racing, but he did finish 7th at Imola at round 4, so he'll have this replace it as a drop score. Mark Chapman is second on 81 points, got a great chance to take the lead of the championship. However, Josip Kosic is third on 80, so he's right in the mix is Josip. Fourth is Daniel Danu on 78, as is Jordan Harding for that matter. And then 6th place, tied on 76 points, we have Simon Whiting and Steve Hall. In 8th place, we've got Tom Creed on 71 points. Martin Van Rienen is 9th on 64, and Neil Wright is 10th on 59. So we shall see. Let's get on the track action. Let's try and cut over to our pole sitter. Eventually the game will scroll through. There we are. And hopefully, there we go. The drivers are underway. They get this very brief opportunity to warm the tyres up, and then they'll be set off for this 2-hour event. I do hope you've got your snacks, everybody. Oh, that was a bit of a close shave, that, for Joseph. He nearly ran into the back of the two in front of him. But it's important, this race really is important, especially for Josip, who's in 3rd position right now. He has a big chance to take the lead in the Drivers' Championship if he gets a good result, if he finishes where he is. Of course, don't forget as well, the drivers do have a mandatory pit stop that they will need to make. So the question won't just be about pure speed this evening, it'll also be about making sure that they can get the tyres to last around this track. Drivers are all lining up together, and the green flag is flown here at the Nurburgring Nordschleife, and that's a good reaction from Tony Sokolov. Daniel Danu is going to be challenging going into turn 1 with Tom Creed as they approach the braking zone at the first corner. That's Tom Creed going up the inside of the Ferrari. Scott Clark comes out of the pit lane, but Tony Sokolov is the man in the lead. He'll be happy with that. We'll have a look back in the mid-pack. You've got Dennis Penders there. You've got Eden Peckman. All looking good so far. Steve's in 5th place, Steve Hall. Good start for him. Mark Chapman stayed in 14th place. Tony Manley, that's Jordan on the inside of Michael van der Waal. Actually, it looked more like it was... It wasn't actually... I don't think that was actually. Let me just have a quick look. I think that was Big Jeff who was going through. Jeffrey Van Buren, yeah. So Jeffrey up a spot then in the Lamborghini. If that's the case, that's definitely his car. Bright green livery as the cars fly through the Schumacher S. Oh, that's Josip off the road. Can he get back on the track? He's got to be careful. He does. Everybody slows it down nice and steady. I said that this was a long race, ladies and gentlemen. In the first minute and a half, we've already had a car go off the road. Josip loses a spot, and that's Michael van der Waal, and there goes Jordan as well. He's off the road. That's John Wells round. Well, I did say there was going to be some incidents, and it's already happened. Eden Peckman did get caught up in that, but it doesn't look like he's got any damage. Just trying to cycle back through. He's still got Tony Sokolov in the lead. Scott Clark has actually rejoined with all the chaos in front of him. So there's Jordan. I think it's Michael van der Waal, and I can't quite see. I think it's John Wells. So there was 3 cars that went round in the end. Hopefully there's no damage for them. Jeffrey Van Buren survives though. He was in the midst of all of that, but got away with it. And we are now on the old loop of the track. There's a blue flag running, but that shouldn't be out there. But despite going off the road, Josip back in position, back running again. He's behind Steve Hall, who's had a really good start. But what I can say is that the front 3 drivers are already pulling away. That's Daniel Danu in 3rd place, just up the road. He already got about maybe 2-3 seconds on the next set of cars who were following with Josip. So he's in 5th place. Kevin McAtee right behind Tony Manning. So Kevin was another driver who went off the road. He's now got to try and find a way through that Aston Martin. That won't be easy. Now the timing screens are Oh, that's what I was saying. There's a lot of undulation at this circuit. and it can catch the drivers out. And Kevin went slightly left then, and there was a big rise, and he took the McLaren off into some skydiving, which he didn't absolutely want to do in any way, shape or form. There's your reset, so that's how the grid actually is. That's your first sector beam, if you want to call it that. But Tony Sokolov currently clear. And I did say the gap between Daniel Danu and Steve Hull is 2 seconds, and I was about right. Michael van der Walt. Doesn't look like there's any damage on his car. Looks like he just got caught up in the incident with Jordan. It was a bit of an odd one. John Wells, 5 seconds. That's how much time he's lost to the pack. There's Ross Harris. So Ross has managed to... He's got a little bit of damage as Ross. He must have got bumped in the back of all of the Constantina effect. But he is running in 6th at the moment. Tom Creed pushing already. He's trying to stick with Tony Sokolov. And if he only stays a couple of seconds behind for the next few laps... Although having said that, that is very, very deep from Tom. He's got away with that one. It's not a corner you really want to go too deep at. As they now come into this section of track called the Exmoor. And you've got Bergwerk coming up the right-hander in a moment. They're in the... Unofficially, they're in the first half of the lap, really. Jordan has caught up, so we've got a 3-car fight already for 13th position of the recovery drivers. Tony Manley in 10th position currently. Mark Chapman up to 9th, so good start for Mark. He needed that if he wants to make some impressions in the championship fight. Of course, let's not forget Tom Creed as well as another one who you can factor into the championship fight. And Tom in 8th place at the moment, so he is outscoring everybody this evening. Don't forget we've got Tony Sokolov, who is leading this race. He did win earlier on this season. Got his first race win of the season at round 3. It was only his second appearance in the league at that point. Ooh, almost had a side-by-side between Dennis Penders and Jeffrey Van Buren. Oh, and he's run a little bit wide as Van Buren, and that is a nice clean move from Dennis Penders to move into what would be 7th place. Oh, Ross Harris gets that all wrong, and so does Mark Chapman. He just about caught that together. He's got Kevin McAtee right up the rear spoiler, but then I think Kevin got it all wrong on the exit of the carousel, and Tony Manley moves into the top 10. So 2 mistakes in quick succession by different brands of car there. The McLaren spun round. I don't know if Kevin's got any damage from that. Steve Hull running in 4th position at the moment. He's 3 seconds back. I don't think he'll mind though. I think he's just focusing on getting a good race result. Steve Hall 7th overall in the championship at the minute on 76 points. Well, he's level with Simon for 6th on 76 points, but you know, he's still right involved in the championship. I think Dennis Penders has made a mistake. Yeah, there you go. He's gone off the road at the famous spectator section over at Brunchen. And it looks like he's got a little bit of damage there. So if we just skip back to Penders, if we can, this would be great. There we are. So he's behind Eden Peckman. So he's outside of the top 10 now, is Dennis. I wonder what happened to him. Right on board. Ooh, Peckman's car all over the place. And Dennis had to downshift then through the Beloff S's. So Eden clearly not having as much confidence as Dennis does in his Ferrari. Ooh, a little bit of a kick of oversteer. Got John Wells in the camera on the right hand side, right behind him. So those 3 that got caught up in that. Oh, that's John running a little bit wide just in the background. I could just see that happening. Can we get the rear spoiler camera? That'd be fab if we could. There we are. You can see the trio of cars that went off earlier on in this race are now back with the pack. So even though they are down the field at the moment, do not rule them out at all for a good result. In fact, I'm watching this from Dennis's perspective because I think Jordan's Ford Mustang is going to be immensely quick down this straight. You can see Scott Clark just back there as well in the number 68. He's lagging a little bit behind because of his pit lane start. Side by side for Penders and Peckman as they go through the left-hander, and that is a nice move. He goes through, and I think... Oh, Jordan's all over the curb and the grass. He's managed to get it stopped. Just about hangs on to it. That's Mark Chapman round. And I think he's had an incident with Tony Manley. I think they looked like they were going side by side. Oh, that was a bit of a mess. And that's going to be damage, I think, for Mark Chapman. An absolute nightmare. As we've just had a late entry from Zout 101, which we certainly weren't expecting. But we have had one lap down. It is Tony Sokolov who leads the way, but he has not got much of a gap at all, has he, ladies and gentlemen, to Tom Creed? He's sticking with him well. Last season's runner-up, of course, is right with the Ferrari driver. So can Sokolov handle the pressure and take his second win of the season? Let's get you through just a standard running chart. It'll be a little bit easier. Unfortunately, we can't remove the map at the moment. It is Tony Sokolov who leads the way. Tom Creed in second place. Daniel Danu in third. Steve Hall in fourth place. There's a gap already between Daniel Danu and the front two. Steve can see the McLaren in front of him in fourth. Josip Kosic in fifth. Ross Harris running in sixth. Then it's Jeffrey Van Buren in seventh place. A good opening lap for him. Kevin McAtee is in eighth place, but he's 8 seconds off the back of the cars that haven't really had an incident in the race so far in the opening lap. Dennis Penders is ninth. Then it's Eden Peckman in the top 10. John Wells is now back up to 11th after his lap 1 incident. Jordan Harding up to 12th. Michael van der Waal in 13th place. Then it's Scott Clark, Tony Manley, Mark Chapman in the pits. Nightmare for him. He did get clobbered, unfortunately. And then Zout, who has joined us late, is obviously not going to be able to get out there, really. So, unfortunately, he joined in a little bit too late. Did the Ferrari driver. So, Danny Zoutenbayer didn't quite make it in time, which would have been his first appearance of the season, but it still is. He's on camera at least. As Tony Sokolov brakes really hard for the right-hander going into effectively the Arenberg. Let's get back into the action though. We'll scroll down to where John Wells is. That looks like the closest fight between the drivers, although having said that, Ross Harris has Jeffrey Van Buren all over the rear spoiler of that Lamborghini. Look at this, he's all over the back of the Lamborghini here. There we go, we got a rear view shot. Look at the commitment the drivers have to show through these corners, but Jeffrey Van Buren looking very good at the moment, looking very confident. Certainly seems to have a little bit more speed and a bit more bravery on the curbs there, as you saw. He's doing a good job so far. It's his debut race of the season, of course. I don't think Ross will mind too much, as long as there isn't an incident that he's got a car right with him. Ross did finish 5th earlier this season. It was his best result at round 1, but since then he's just had a lot of bad luck. He's had a DNF already, so I think he'll want to just come home with some good points today. He's on track to do so, but again, we've only had 13 minutes of this 2-hour race. There's a long way to go, and Jeffrey Van Buren hits the wall and he bounces off it again, and he was pushing so hard. And that is what confidence can do. It can just lull you a little bit into a false sense of security. And we've just had the first mistake from the debutants. And he clomped the wall quite hard. So fingers crossed there's not too much damage. There's Josip. That will follow. It's actually Tom Creed, I should say. There's Jordan Harden. He's got past John Wells. So his next car to overtake will be Eden Peckman. Let's see if we can get to Eden. There he is. Using this rear camera tracking shot here. Jordan, don't forget, he qualified in the top 6 earlier, so he'll feel that he's got the speed to get past the Ferrari. And I've said it numerous times this season, that Mustang is very quick in a straight line. And that's a nice line there. Now we're coming through this really quick section of the course here at the Nordschleife. The next few corners are absolutely flat out until you get to Muck Curve. And you can see the Mustangs closing in. Ooh, bit of a weird camera angle there for Jordan's car. We did definitely see the undercarriage. I think that's Dennis Penders has got a damaged car. There he is. He's struggling. He can't keep it in a straight line. And that is a spot gained for both Eden and Jordan. Jordan will want to try and find a way through, but I don't think that is going to happen just yet. He runs a little bit wide, does Eden? But yeah, I think Dennis has hit the wall. Oh, that's very wide from Jordan Harden. He keeps it out the wall. Excuse me. And you can already see the difference in speed between Dennis Penders' broken car and the gap that you got. Oh, and that is Dennis Penders in the wall. Did he get a nudge from John Wett? Oh, it's gone from bad to worse for Dennis. That is a great shame. The Belgian has been beaten up here by the track. He's just got to try and make it back to the pits, I think. Oh, what a disaster. Tony Sokolov doesn't know anything about disaster though so far. He's 2 and a bit seconds clear, I think. Although, having said that, I think he's got a bigger gap to Tom Creed. Let's just have a look. See if we can count this up as we come round the long right-hander. I think he's doubled that advantage actually. I think Tom's had a little mistake somewhere. That's kept him far enough ahead. Scott Clark still circulating, although admittedly quite slowly, but he won't mind as long as he gets to the end. Oh, that's a little bit wide from Jeffrey Van Buren. I would like just to say as well, Danny Zoutenbayer, the Dutch driver who joined late, he is on track. He has managed to get out there, so Danny is going to get some points. He will be a lap down, but nevertheless, he's out on track. There he is, in fact. The yellow Ferrari is out there circulating. See what his lap times are like later on. Josip in 5th place still at the moment. Do excuse me, ladies and gentlemen, I'm doing my utmost to not cough on the microphone. Josip running in 5th place at the moment. There's Kevin McEntee. Jordan is in front of Eden Peckman, just to give you an update on that group of cars. He's got through quite early on, actually. So you've got John Wells in front of us, and that should be Eden Peckman, who runs wide at the penultimate corner. So this will give us an update on positions. But Eden is running in the top 10. Michael van der Waal running in 12th place. And is that John looking for a move up the inside at turn 1? Here he goes. Decides to back out of it. Carries on for now. There he is. There's John. As we go on to lap 3 of this race. 20 minutes of racing done so far. An hour and 40 minutes to go. Just over. Ross Harris. Oh, is that... Oh, I thought for a moment. Thought Jeffrey Van Buren was going to go up the inside there. These two certainly are the closest fight on circuit at the moment. Ross is under pressure here. Let's see if we can get on board with Jeffrey Van Buren. Oh! I think that was Scott Clark off the road, yeah, as Mark Chapman goes up to 15th place. Mark has made his pit stop though, admittedly. He'll gain some time back, but they'll have to hope he doesn't hit the wall. There we go, let's ride on board with the Ferrari. Following him through the first couple of corners of the old track. And then over the bridge here. And then into Flugplatz, this right-hander. Got to be careful the cars don't take off through that right-hander, because they can certainly do. That's wide from Ross Harris. He gets away with that. That would have been a mother and a father of an accident if he'd dipped more than the wheel he did on that corner. Wow. Well, I said, but ooh, that is very late from Van Buren. But I was saying before, Jeff seems to have a lot of confidence compared to Ross in front of him. That's not to say Ross is slow. He's not slow at all. But Van Buren seems to have a lot of pace to unlock. It's just trying to find an overtaking spot around this circuit is not the easiest. Oh, he goes on the curb and gets a bit too much wheel spin up that side of the track. Van Buren drops away again. Now Kevin McEntee, I think, has been closing that gap. Let's just have a quick look at the lap times. Hopefully we can get those up for you. An 8 minute 30 on that last lap, so I think that Kevin McEntee has closed the gap quite immensely to Jeffrey Van Buren. Yeah, look at that, 4 and a bit seconds. So certainly working out very well for Kevin. They're going to have a 3-car fight then for 6th place, it looks like, if Kevin can keep 1, the car on the road, and 2, can continue with this rate of speed. There's still a long, long way to go in this race, though. Absolutely loads of time for anything to happen at all. And we've still got an hour and 37 minutes to go in this race. But this is one of those scenarios for the drivers where you are stuck behind a potentially a slower car, and it'll come down to patience, really. You know, if you can sit behind a car for that long, you might be able to force the driver in front into a mistake. It might be a case of they don't make a mistake, you've got to force the issue at an unexpected corner. This could be one of the overtaking zones for a driver to squeeze on through. as we go through the carousel. Of course, the carousel named Jeffrey Van Buren, getting a bit frustrated. He's seen the back of that Lamborghini enough over the last 10 minutes, and he wants to get on with it and see whether he can go on after Josip Kosic, who's in 5th place currently. But the carousel, named of course after Rudolf Caracciola in the 1920s and 30s, an unbelievable driver, one of the original Rainmeisters. He used that part of the circuit. Everyone used to use the old banking around the outside, and that's where that name comes from. But again, look, this is it. Jeffrey makes a mistake, but then closes right back up on Ross. He runs a little bit wide at Brunchen. Oh, he's trying to force Harris into different areas of the track. He's just trying to put him off guard because he really does want to get on with it. I was saying before about Kevin McAtee closing the gap. He's not anymore. He's 21 seconds behind. So Kevin has made a mistake, and Jordan Harden now right with him. And Buren just take that Lamborghini doesn't half move all over the circuit, ladies and gentlemen. Ross is clearly doing everything he can to keep up his speed. Certainly not ideal. Oh, that's wide, and this is going to be the opportunity that Jeffrey's been looking for, but he just can't get on the power early enough. And that was a nice exit from Ross. Building up through the gears, up to 6th gear, up to 160 miles an hour. He's trying to follow in the slipstream of the Lamborghini in front of him, but in truth, that Lamborghini is well set up in a straight line. Only now is the Ferrari closing the gap, but he's not getting close enough. 173, 74, 5 miles an hour for the Ferrari driver. Oh, that's a little bit late from Ross. Now, if Van Buren is smart about it, he can get on the exit quite quickly and nicely, and he does so. That's the door open that he's been looking for. He's been looking for it for ages, it must feel like, for him. But he's on the inside as they approach turn 1. And can he brake a little bit later than the Lamborghini driver? He's on the inside. We ride on board. He's going to be outside for turn 2. Little bit of wheel banging together. He's still there as the Ferrari. Ross is going to have to be... He can't cut the door off. And Jeffrey has to back out of it. But that, you feel, that might have been the first big chance. Will he send a lunge up the inside here? He will do. And that's a lovely overtake from Jeffrey Van Buren. It took him a while, but he's got through now. And he's up to 6th place. Now, can he demonstrate the speed that he was showing behind the Lamborghini? Can he pull away now and go on after Josip, who is 12 seconds clear at the moment? But that was a nice overtake from the Ferrari. I didn't think he'd go for a lunge on the right-hander, but he did manage to pull it off, so well done. He might be a lap down, might Danny. But Mr. Zoutenbayer is not going to let that stop him. Let's see what he can do through the rest of this race. I don't think he's going to be able to unlap himself, but lap time wise, I'd be curious to see what his speed is like compared to the rest of the field. Josip in 5th place so far. Here's a nice close fight on circuit as Kevin McAtee runs wide. This is the fight over the top 9 places, and what I mean by the top 9 is Eden Peckman's just in front here. You can just see him out of camera shot. There he is. in 9th place. Kevin, ooh, the McLaren did not sound at all settled over those curves, and he's gone wide and he's had a little snap of oversteer. That's the chance for Michael van der Waal to go through, and John Wells will say thank you very much as well, will he? He's on the inside, and that's move made for the Mercedes, and that little snap of oversteer through the S chicane there just unsettled the McLaren. Oh, he's all over the road actually. He's just having a bit of a struggle. He just needs to slow it down, get it settled, get a few corner apexes nailed, get back into the rhythm. He's just made a mistake, and that's going to happen tonight. It's going to happen many times, but it's just how you recover from them. That's critical. It's wide again. He's trying to push his utmost as Kevin. Oh, he's all over the grass. He needs to get back on the tarmac. Don't push it too much. So Kevin McEntee back to it then. Don't forget, this is a driver who finished second at Silverstone over a month ago, admittedly, for round 2 of the season, but he's just not had the same speed since then that he's shown that day when he led for quite a fair chunk of the race, but alas, that didn't translate into a race victory. It was a second place position, but here's one fight as well that has closed up. Josip is not far away from Steve. He's been quite close since the start of the races. The gap's always been about 3-4 seconds, but that's closed up a little bit more. It's probably about 2.5 seconds at the minute. Back to Kevin McEntee. He's now outside of the top 10. He'll be frustrated, he'll be annoyed, of course he will be, with that error, but he just has to remember still an hour and a half left of this race remaining. Plenty of time and opportunities for him to climb back up that leaderboard. There's Daniel Danu. I haven't seen much of Daniel since he made those moves earlier in the race. He's in 3rd place at the minute, and he's in no man's land in the McLaren. He's quite I was going to say he's quite far away from Tom Creed, but I don't think that's the case. I think Tom's had another little error somewhere. He's 12 seconds behind Tony Sokolov now, and Daniel Danu's 22 behind Tom Creed, so definitely in no man's land. Michael van der Waal having a little slide. Excuse me. Having a little slide there, coming out of berg work. Now, I don't want to say too much in terms of commentators cursing on everybody, but of the races I've commentated on this season, this has to be John Wells' most competitive race so far. He's been right in the thick of the action. He's been in and around the top 10. He did have his best result at Bathurst for round 3, where he finished where he is right now in 11th place. This has been a good showing from him, and the Mercedes is quite well suited to this circuit. I feel it's quite a stable car, so he's doing a good job at the moment. I think Kevin McEntee's gone off again. Yeah, he definitely has. He was right with John before. He's not there anymore, is he? And in fact, he's gone round again. Cycle through the cars to see if we can find him, and he's in the pits. Well, that is our first retirement then of the session. That is a shame, but Kevin McEntee throws in the towel after a quarter of the race distance. let's bring you up to speed where everybody is on track. So there is our race leader. We haven't seen much of him, but Tony Sokolov leads the way. He's 12.7 seconds clear of Tom Creed. Daniel Danu runs in third place. There's Steve Hall in fourth. Josip Kosic I think has just gone off the road. I think Josip Kosic has just gone off the road. That's a lot of damage to the front of the car, and that gap was 2.7 seconds. Steve's on the main straight. Josip's nowhere near it. Now, will that require a pit stop to get fixed? Well, the BMW has found its way into the wall. I can only presume if he's gone off anywhere, it'll either be at the Balafesses or the small carousel. Let's go back onto that. That BMW's limping, I think. I don't think he's going quickly at all. I wish this game would just let me go to the drivers that I want to see. Yeah, he's definitely going a lot slower. It's 160 miles an hour. That is nowhere near fast enough. Jeffrey Van Buren is going to be in the top 5. And I think that's Daniel Danu in the pits. So the first of the front pack is in. That's quite early from the McLaren. I think Josip's going to peel right, is he? Yeah, he didn't even know where the pit lane was. There we go. He's into the pits, and that's damage that's going to have to get fixed. So that's a shame for Josip. But he's in the pit lane getting that sorted. Daniel Danu's in there as well. Michael van der Wal has closed the gap back up to Eden Peckman, who he's been with for most of this race so far. Going flat out at 167 miles an hour. So Michael van der Wal clearly running a setup that's much more geared towards the bigger. Ooh, runs a bit wide. But I was just about to say, running to the more technical side of this circuit. Clearly not setting up his car for a straight line, but 2.8 away from Eden Peckman after that mistake. John Wells 2.3 further back. Ross Harris in 8th place. Now he's lost a spot to Jordan Harding on that lap, and I think Ross has gone off the road. Oh, and that's a stop and go penalty for Daniel Danu. What a nightmare. He was comfortably running on his own in 3rd place. But Daniel has got a penalty, and that's just going to bring an opportunity for the drivers behind to pull back into it. Let's just go into this. So we had Steve Hall, who was 35 seconds behind Daniel Danu when he crossed the line. So Steve Hall is on for a podium when Daniel makes his 2nd stop of the evening. He's going to be kicking himself about that. Is Danny. Jeffrey Van Buren having the time of his life in the lime green Ferrari. He's in 5th place. Josip is now out of the pits. He's got his damage fixed, but he won't be in 6th place. Jordan Harding will be in 6th place. So despite his incident on lap 1, Jordan absolutely flying through the field, doing a great job. Ross Harris will be in 7th place. Eden Peckman will be running in 8th with Michael van der Wal in 9th. There's John Wells in 10th place. Tony Manley, quietly going about his business, will be in 12th. So Daniel Danu is 11th at the moment with that penalty to serve. Kevin McAtee is back out on track. So he's not retired. He has rejoined the race. Let's see how he gets on. He's got Mark Chapman not too far away from the recovering Mark Chapman. Don't forget, who had the incident at the end of lap 1. And he's already made his pit stop, but he is 94 seconds behind Tony Manley, and that's quite a lot of ground to try and make up. But it's all about the points. Dennis Penders, after his incident earlier, quite a long way away. Scott Clark is grass hopping at the moment. Not the ideal line through that. I think he's got more damage actually. There's Danny in 17th place. He will be a lap down. will Danny Zoutenbayer, but he is on track and getting points, and that's what the key is here. It's good to see if Tom Creed has any damage. He was quite far away. It's quite difficult to tell with his livery. He's got damage at the back of the car. So on this panic shot, no. No, it doesn't look like he's really got any. He's got damage at the back, but I don't know if he's maybe had a spin and he's bumped backwards into the wall. His lap times are still outstanding. An 8:27. He'd be comfortably on his own leading this race, but the problem is he's got Tony Sokolov quite a bit clear of him. Let's see what his time is as he splits the beam. It's 16.9 seconds, so Sokolov having a great run at the front. Now, the next question is, Jordan Harden running in 5th place, how high can he get in this race? Can he catch Jeffrey Van Buren? The last lap was an 8:31, which is only 4 seconds off Tom Creed's last lap. Admittedly, Tom Creed's best lap is an 8:20. Jordan doing a personal best on that last lap and going quicker again on this lap. Tony Manley's doing 8:41s. Good times from Tony, to be fair to him. Mark Chapman's doing 8:34s. There's a blue flag out there for Kevin McEntee. Tony Sokolov in the 8:31s. That can't be right. No, I do apologise. When the pink and the white come up on the timing tower, it can catch me out at times, but that's Steve doing 8:31s. Eden Peckman behind Ross Harris. So Ross has had a little error out there somewhere. He's run wide. Going into the stealth track, he's now coming up to the carousel. There's a yellow flag. I think that's Jordan Harden who's gone round. It is. That is an interesting place to have gone round, actually. That's going into the Hoact corner. I wonder if he's put a wheel on the curb. Any damage? Doesn't look like it. He'll carry on. That definitely looked like a spin for the Mustang. Commentator's curse coming in rather nicely for Jordan there. I say nicely. That is sarcasm. Now, one thing that I've taken an interest in here is that Mark Chapman is not far away from Josip Kosic, who was obviously running in the top 5 before until his incident, but that might just fill Chapman with a bit of hope, knowing that his championship rival has run into some strife. Might give him someone to latch onto. But there's still an hour and 17 minutes of this race remaining. Steve Hall running in 3rd place. He's had a nice calm run so far. Will he be a driver that decides to pit? It'd be very early if he did. He decides against it. But Steve, you build championships on results. And that's exactly what Steve did last season. He had 2 race victories when he took the title. Right now, he's had a 3rd place at the opening round of the season, but he's not had anything since then. He's had any podium finishes since then, I should say. He's had 2 7th places and a 9th. Certainly not the same. So this is a great drive as of this moment. That's Jeffrey Van Buren in the pits. So running in 4th place was Jeffrey. He's just made his pit stop, so that promotes a couple of drivers up the order. Adam Peckman has got past Ross Harris for 6th place. Although, having said that, on the road it'll be 5th place currently, because Jeffrey Van Buren is in the pit lane still. Des Penders has carried on. Again, we haven't seen much of him, but Tony Sokolov, I think, might have lost time to Tom Creed. Let me just see. He's going to flip the sector beam there. I think Tom Creed's caught him. I think Tony Sokolov's made a mistake. Correction. Tony Sokolov has not made a mistake. It is Tom Creed that has made a mistake. I'm looking at the 68 number on the timing tracker, and my screen was saying that was number 13. So I'm looking at it through my portal that I'm looking at here, but unfortunately that wasn't correct. Daniel Danu has cleared his stop-go penalty, so that's that sorted. Don't speed on the way out, Daniel, otherwise you'll get into trouble again with the stewards. Let's ride on board with Sokolov for the rest of the lap, actually, because we don't get to watch drivers that often on board for a full lap of the Nordschleife unless we are on a qualifying lap, and today we didn't even have the opportunity to do that. But it'd be nice to see where Sokolov is making his time and the lines he is taking. It's a very sharp downshift from 4th to 2nd there, and again as he goes up through the gears, through the left-hander, and then going into what is now berg work. Ooh, a little bit of a run wide from Sokolov, but he gets away with it. Now he's going to go through this left-hander, then he'll be into what's effectively known as the Kesselchen sequence of corners. So we were looking at this right-hander pretty much here. Here's a little incline on this straight as well. And interestingly, Sokolov not jumping into 6th gear, he's staying on a limiter. And then he's got the left-hander here at the muck curve. Got to be committed through there, and he is doing. Then it's into Klostertal. Almost flat. There was a brief lift, and then down through the gears into Stelstrak. 1st gear for Sokolov for that corner. And then he'll be coming up to the carousel. Runs sort of between the inside of the carousel and not, but that's not going to harm him in any way, shape or form. And then he'll come through this sequence of corners that I'm a huge fan of. This left, right. Got to be really committed and have confidence through the right-hander, which he does. Drop down a gear for, then into Hoact, which is this right-hander here. Then we'll go through what is effectively Hedwig's Ho and Whipperman. So Hedwig's that right-hander, then through the left-hander. Whipperman is just here. And then what will then become Eschbach, which is this left-hander. And then into the massive spectator zone at Brunchin. Nicely done so far from the Croatian. And then he'll have the left-hander at Ellscurve. bit wider this part of the track. Not that there are many wide parts, to be fair. He'll come down now into the plants garden. He's got to get this right. The car will bounce, and it does quite heavily there. Does quite nicely. And then he will now come through Sprughugel, and effectively the Belov S's. There he goes. Nice and committed. And then he'll come into the last couple of corners before we go onto the main straight. So we'll be coming into the corner known as Schwallens Ben Schwanz, which is this left-hander, and then into the little carousel, so the Klein's carousel. Nice and easy, but the car jumped up a little bit out of gear. Galgenkopf is the final corner before we go on to Dottinger Ho, which is the main straight. A little bit wide from the Ferrari, but he's doing alright at the minute. We'll just cut to the external camera for this long straight. ...171 miles an hour. Into the left-hander. And then down into, effectively, Hohen Rain. That sequence of corners just there. And that's your start-finish line he goes across, and then into effectively the first part of the track, the main GP loop. And that was a lap, well, 3/4 of a lap of the Nordschleife. You can see the challenge that the drivers face when they are circulating around this German circuit. Scott Clark is going into the pits again. He's got some form of issue. Oh, what's happening to Jeffrey Van Buren? He's pulling over. He's pulled over. He's back in the pits. What's happened to Jeffrey Van Buren? He was going so well. What has happened to the Ferrari driver? Well, that is an absolute disaster. But Jeffrey Van Buren, who was driving so well and was on for what could have been 4th place, is no longer going to be there. Wow. Josip Kosic has got Mark Chapman right with him. Now, these two have both pitted. Don't forget, Kosic had some strife earlier in this race. Oh, that's Kevin McEntee going off the road, I think. Ahead of us. Of course, at Hoacht, I think it was. It looks like his McLaren in front of us. And it does say 777 at the top left, so it definitely was him. And there you go, there's proof of it. Daniel Danu has cleared his penalty, so what will happen to him now? Michael van der Waal running in 6th place, but yet to make a pit stop. This is all open in the air, really, everybody. Still a long way to go. We're not even at the halfway mark. John Wells is in front of Ross Harris, so Ross Harris is just sliding backwards in this race at the minute. Looks like he's got a bit of damage to the back of that car, and into the pits then comes the Lamborghini. Tom Creed 23 seconds behind Tony Sokolov, but that's still plenty of time for Sokolov. If he makes a mistake, it just opens the door right back open for Tom. Anyone running within a minute of the race lead has still got a chance of it, and currently at the moment that is literally just Tom Creed. Jordan Harden's still in 4th place. He's done an 8:29. His best effort so far in this race is 3 seconds off what Tom Creed did on the previous lap. Tony Manley's circulating in the 8:40s, but he's in 9th place. Solid effort from him once again, the Italian. The only driver running the V8 Vantage. Mark Chapman can see Josip. I think Josip has got some damage because that Ferrari is closing in big style. And he's going to go past and into what will be 11th place. So Mark Chapman makes an overtake for the first time since what is probably lap 1. I think he'll be ecstatic with that. But I wonder if Josip's got more damage. I wonder. I'll have to wait and see. Comes through these last few corners. Will the BMW peel into the pit? It doesn't sound right, that BMW, actually, compared to usual. Just trying to get the reverse camera. No. So the BMW has carried on. Steve is quietly going about his business in the 3rd position. And just to give you some context as well, actually, whilst Steve's driving around, Steve's best lap so far is an 8:31. We can see the speed that Jordan Harden has because he's done an 8:29 as his best lap. So, had it not been for his incident at the start, who knows where Jordan Harden could have been in this race. I'll tell you someone who's really recovered quite well in this middle part of the race now. Eden Peckman. He looked like he was in a bit of trouble earlier and he was sliding down the field, but seems to be coming back into the swing of it. He's got his momentum going. He's found a groove in that blue and orange Ferrari, and he is putting in a good shift. Michael van der Waal has been stuck with him for quite a long time now, to be honest with you. But I don't think Michael van der Waal will mind too much. Because he's right there, and he's, again, another one who got affected in that lap 1 GP loop incident was Michael van der Waal, and he's there in 6th place. So this has been a good drive so far. Dennis Penders, he's still recovering from his accident before. I don't know whether he got hit by John Wells. From a camera angle, it looked like he did, but it's kind of hard to tell because sometimes Assetto Corsa Competizione does have its moments where it glitches a little bit. I have to check out and see if Scott is having any more issues. He normally puts into the general area. Scott's actually said that he's had a few issues. He's talking about when he hit the car of Mark Chapman earlier in the race. He thought he was okay, but then had to carry on. And when he realised he got to the next few corners after the incident with Mark Chapman, he realised there was damage, so he had to pit. He lost quite a lot of time. So he said that not the race he's envisaged, but that was half an hour ago. Since then, he's been circulating. Excuse me. But he's out there on track. I've just come to the conclusion as well that he's been overtaken by the man who didn't start the race on time, by Danny Zoutenbayer. So Danny's made up a position. I'll be pleased with that. There was the star of the first half an hour, Jeffrey Van Buren, but unfortunately he went to the pits. Now we don't know why. Didn't look as if he had any damage or anything like that, but alas, it has dropped him out of the fight for the top 4, as it was looking at one point. So he's going to have to continue going on. There is the Dutch driver, Danny Zoutenbayer. He's yet to make his pit stop, but his lap times are quite competitive, actually. An 8 minute 30 is his best lap. And if we just have a look at our quick time table loop here that we've got, have a look at what Jordan's done 8:29. Yeah, that's competitive from the Ferrari. If he'd got here on time, who knows where he could have ended up. But good to see him circulating. Could still reach another couple of places, depending on how the next hour and 1 minute of this race pans out. We are just approaching the halfway mark at the moment. There's Josip in 12th place. He's lost a bit of time to Mark Chapman. I'm just wondering, he's 9 seconds slower on this lap alone. I wonder if he's got damage, because the car just doesn't seem to look as active as it did before. It looks a little bit limp. I wonder if he's had another incident maybe that's just whacked the car out of kilter again. Michael van der Waal is still chasing after Edin Peckman in 5th place. These two are still the closest fight on circuit. I say closest, but John Wells isn't far away either. He's been part of this trio for a while. He's 4 seconds back, but this is a great showing from the AMG Merc. Now, I've got to say, the McLaren has closed right up on Peckman here through the Beloff S's. Michael van der Waal putting some really nice corners together there. That McLaren 720S is as I was saying, the McLaren driver putting in some really good corners there. And he's closing the gap. This is going to be a new best lap from Michael van der Waal for him. He's a second in the bid up, and he's going to have the slipstream now of the car in front. There's a yellow flag out there. Well, I think that's for a car that's in the pits at the moment. In fact, it is. That's for Mark Chapman. So I think Mark's just in the pit, so it's just caused the yellow flag, but that shouldn't really be an issue for the drivers. But this is how this race goes. It ebbs and flows at the Nordschleife. It's never easy, and they're both into the pits at the same time. So, oh, that's Steve Hall. Steve Hall has just picked up a stop-go penalty, and that has opened the door for Jordan Harding. Jordan was 40 seconds behind, and a stop-go penalty will bring Jordan into 3rd place. Let's see, though. We'll watch the pit stops as they just come into their spots now. They will drive through each other, of course. Wow, that's a shocker. Now, this is an important fight as well. Daniel Danu, who was running originally in 3rd place earlier, where will he come out in the midst of all this? Because he's been quick all the way through the race. Jordan Harding has picked up a stop-go penalty, and that has just changed the dynamic again. Ah, he'll be kicking himself at that. That was such a daft error to make. And Daniel Danu, who is going into the pits very slowly, gets it stopped in time. Now, Daniel didn't need to pit, and I was just about to say Daniel Danu is going to be back into 3rd place, but it's all wide open now, everybody. Who wants a podium? Realistically, at this point, who wants a podium? Well, Ross Harris we are following at the moment. So the front two, the only drivers, I believe... Oh, Tom Creed. Just about getting away with that. I was about to say, the only two drivers, apart from Danny's out, down in 15th, the only two left to make a pit stop. But this is blown the race wide open, because Steve's got to make a pit stop, and that's going to take about 60-65 seconds. Jordan has to make a pit stop. That's going to be about the same amount of time. Eden Peckman and Michael van der Wal might not be out of this yet. This has just been an absolutely chaotic last few minutes. Tony Manley's got a drive-through penalty as stop-go as well, and he was running in 8th place. John Wells has made his pit stop. He's in 7th at the minute. You know, there's a lot left that can happen in this race, ladies and gentlemen. Absolutely tons. And in fact, let me just re-estimate. Oh, Jordan, now why do you want to go through there? But let me just re-estimate this. So, Steve is at the moment in the second general sector of the lap. Now, I want to see what his time is between himself and Tom Creed when he passes it. We've got quite a while before we get there, because I'll be able to work out exactly how much time he's going to lose in the pits, as will with, of course, Jordan Harding and Tony Manley, who I think has just been overtaken by Josip Kosic. He has indeed. There's a couple of cars all together on circuit. Ooh, that's a bit wide from the Italian. Kept it on the road, but Ross Harris is right with him now. But Tony's was having such a consistent race, and that's so key around the Nordschleife. You know, 25 kilometres of circuit. Oh, Ross again wide at the right-hander. And I've said it before, that corner, you can't just go through that right-hander at the Flugplatz and just assume it's going to be okay. And too many drivers have been taking liberties with that. But Ross clearly wants to go through. That's his objective, to get into the top 8. It'll be his best result since round 1. And the other thing for Ross Harris as well. Oh, there's a yellow flag. Now that is for car 187. Now I'm going to assume that is Jeffrey Van Buren, and it is, and he's just gone back to the pit. So it's a shame for him. Tony under all sorts of pressure here though at the minute. You ride on the rear wing camera shot. Now you've got Ross right there, and you also have John Wells. Now the key here is that John Wells has caught up to Ross Harris, which he hadn't done before. Ooh, wide from Tony. Let's see if we can get onto Ross Harris's camera. That is our race leader in the pit lane. So we're on board with the Lamborghini. That's what I was trying to get to. And you can just see that he looks quicker, visibly looks quicker. But to be honest with you, having said that, John Wells is putting the pressure on as well. So John Wells could be on for his first top 10 of the season here if he continues this on. Daniel Danu, who was running in 3rd place before, he's down in 11th at the minute. Expect him to close up to these guys, because he was running very quick earlier, providing he doesn't make any errors. But that Mercedes looking very ominous to the Lamborghini. John having to back off the throttle a little bit there. Excuse me. Well, after looking like Ross Harris was the quicker of the cars and was attacking Tony Manley, that's all changed. The Aston Martin has pulled away. There's a yellow flag. I think that's Eden Peckman who's gone round. Tom Creed in the pits. He gets off and up the road. Yeah, it was Eden Peckman who went round. Any damage to the Ferrari? It looks like a little bit. Let's just get on board with him. Can't quite tell just yet if he does have damage or otherwise. Did I just see another time penalty flash up for Steve Hull? I'm just watching Eden here because I'm thinking, has he got damage? It's like performance damage, because you can see visibly he's got it on his car. He's clearly sideswiped the barrier. It's just very difficult to tell. Looking a bit further back, Michael van der Waal, is he catching up? Let's watch his top speed now. It doesn't look too bad. I mean, that looks okay to me. No, so Steve Hall and Jordan Harden have carried on. They're not serving their time penalty yet. We'll stop and go. I don't think Eden's got any major damage by the looks of it. His Ferrari's hitting 170 miles an hour now. And he's got away with that mistake. So he carries on. Dennis Penders finds himself in 12th position. Tony Sokolov still in the lead of the race and now has a quarter of the track to himself. Scott Clark back in the pits, unfortunately. Jeffrey Van Buren's carried on, but he's back out on circuit, so not going to get much better for him than 14th, I don't think. Then it's the Zoutman himself, Danny Zoutenbayer. Again, showing some good speed in the 8-minute 30s, but just didn't make it to the race on time. Now, Josip, what's going on here? Josip's going into the pits. So Josip has clearly got a problem. He's going to have to get that damage fixed. So clearly something had been obstructing him. Tony Manley now coming into the pits as well to serve his stop-go penalty. So this leaves Michael van der Waal 11 seconds off Eden Peckman. He was 21 seconds behind before. So van der Waal, who has had a pretty consistent season in terms of speed, he's actually not been bad at all when he's been able to race. You know, he had 9th place at Silverstone and he was unlucky at round 3 as well, when we were having a huge fight at that race, of course, which was at Bathurst. He was unlucky in that race, so he retired in the end. So Michael van der Waal stands in good stead here. I'm just looking to see, as Tony Manley clears his time penalty, how long was he in the pits for? Let's just have a quick look. Oh, Danny Zoutenbayer kept it out of the wall, which is the main thing. But that was an interesting time to cut to him. We can just get Tony Manley. There we are. So yeah, he's lost about 1 minute and 15 seconds. 1 minute and 10 seconds, I think. So with that time penalty, it gives us an idea of how much time Edin Peckman and Michael van der Waal will have to close the gap on Steve and Jordan. I think they'll catch Jordan and pass him. There you go, 44 seconds. So Edin Peckman is going to take 4th place as it stands from the Mustang driver. We wait for Michael van der Waal to clip the timing beam as well, and I think he will go through. So Jordan's going to drop 2 places. The big unknown is where Steve will feed out. I think he will come out in front of the Ferrari, but by how much? It's going to be quite close. I'm just looking to see where Steve is on circuit. He's actually coming up through the next very quick sequence of corners that is known, of course, as the Mutt curve. Now, Mark Chapman has got the Ferrari of Jeffrey Van Buren in front of it. That's actually Edin Peckman. Excuse me. Edin running in 5th place, so I think he's just lapped Chapman. Oh, Tony Sokolov getting it a little bit sideways on the exit of the mini carousel there. He's a minute clear now of Tom Creed, so he's having a good time. Let's just follow the Croatian down the straight here. We'll be back in a moment. So here we are at the moment around the Nurburgring Nordschleife. We're following Tony Sokolov currently. Let's see how he does in the rest of the race. If you are watching, good to have you in here. We've got less than 3/4 of the race remaining. 42 minutes and 29 seconds on the clock. It's been a long haul for the drivers. Tom Creed took 6 seconds out of Tony Sokolov in the last sector. I wonder what happened to the Ferrari. Scott Clark back in the pits. Josip in 11th place and with a stop-go penalty to serve. It's just not gone right for Josip since he had that mistake earlier and he had to pit. He's just had too many issues today. Now, just a quick note that's come up from the race director that just flashed up on the screen. Steve Hall has to serve his penalty on this lap. We know he has to do it on this lap. So will he decide to do it? Correction. Will Jordan decide to do it now on this lap, get it out of the way, or will he do it at the same time as his rival? But Josip running around in 11th place at the minute. That's going to become, ooh, I say 11th, he's in 10th. That is about to become 11th, unfortunately, because he'll have to serve that stop-go. There's Michael van der Waal in 5th place. Now, whoa! That was a huge lapse in concentration from van der Waal. What happened there? Now, the other thing I'd just like to make a point here is that we are missing the driver who was running in 4th place. Or rather 5th place, I should say. We can't seem to join Edin Peckman. Where is he on the track map? Has he disconnected? Because if he has, that is such a disaster and a great shame. He's in the pits. He's in the pits. And that might just secure Steve Hall his drive-through penalty and 3rd place. But it'll make it a shootout between the Dutch driver Van der Waal and Jordan Harding. That is it. Oh, what a shame that is for Edin Peckman. He'd been running so well. We'll have to find out what happened to him, but he's not had much luck this season as Edin, the Croatian. Couldn't start the first 2 races for technical issues. Finished 10th at Imola. That's been the best result, but he was so on for much more than that today. Scott Clark is retiring from the race, just so you're aware. He's had more issues with his wheel. I don't know if Scott's in a position to potentially get another wheel, but it just seems like that one is giving him a lot of grief. So, Michael van der Waal, he sits in 5th place. He could get 4th, but with that off-road excursion just then, he might have some damage. So, he's got to be careful. Daniel Danu is driving very well. He's made 2 pit stops, admittedly, but despite that, he's back up into 7th place, and the Spaniard is looking good for a comeback result, to be honest with you, after his earlier stop-go penalty. John Wells in 6th place with 38 minutes to go. What a story that would be, because John has had nothing short of a nightmare this season. I think he'd be ecstatic with a 6th place. But he does have this man, a Spaniard known as Danu, chasing him down. There is John Wells, actually. But the Mercedes man putting in a great shift. And again, despite getting caught up in first lap shenanigans that John did, he has recovered. The 3 drivers who got caught out at the start are running in 4th, 5th and 6th place. Maybe a blessing in disguise for the 3 of them. Ross Harris, I'm not quite sure what's happened to Ross through this race. He'd been running really well, but for whatever reason, he just seems to have slipped off the boil. And he's running in 11th at the minute. He is a lap down. So if he's had damage, that'll be the reason for it, but he has been doing quite well. Tom Creed still sat about 56 seconds behind Tony Sokolov. I don't think Tom will mind, though. He's currently on for a new best lap of his session so far, with 36 minutes remaining. We are not far from the end. I think we've got about 4 laps to go. Jordan still rocketing on after Steve if he can. He just set a new personal best at 8:27.4. 5 seconds faster than Steve. They'll both be coming in to serve their drive. Michael van der Waal is in the pits. So any discussion about those two dropping from 3rd and 4th, that is Steve Hall and Jordan Harden, is now gone. The McLaren has boxed and is in the pit lane. And maybe the drivers are struggling to make these tyres last to the end of this race here. I did wonder why Daniel Danu had pitted earlier, and that could be the reason for it. He might have presumed that this was going to happen. I got a pit stop in early. Dennis Penders is up to 9th place. Considering that he was in the wall and had a lengthy pit stop as well, this has been a decent recovery drive from the Belgian. It won't be his best result of the season. That came last time out at Imola when he finished 8th. But I think after the start and race he had, he'll be quite pleased with this. Tony Sokolov not slowing down for anybody. An 8:19 on that last lap. Fabulous effort. Scott is done, by the way, just for the record. Jeffrey Van Buren. What could have been for him. And Danny, of course, as well. Danny's open by it. Has carried on. He's going to finish 13th, is Danny, after what had been quite a decent race. He did have his interesting spin before, but he got away with it. Josip is now serving that time stop and go penalty. Just looking to see where the other drivers are in relation to. I'm looking to see where Ross Harris is on the track map, but he's on the other side of Germany at this point. So Josip's going to stay in the top 10. Where's Mark Chapman for that matter? He's still behind Ross Harris. So the championship leaders. So Stuart Packham is probably the biggest beneficiary here. You know, the top 2, 3 drivers. These two aren't going to score points, strong points anyway. You know, Stuart Packham's lowest result so far has been 7th place. So these guys are going to finish outside of that. So he'll be rubbing his hands together with glee. Will Stewart. Tom Creed is going to move up through the championship standings as well. There's Michael van der Waal. I wonder if Michael van der Waal had damage and that's why he pitted. Daniel Danu is closing the gap to John Wells, who is up to 5th place. What a time to be alive. The Mercedes is having a field day. Steve Hall is in the pits to serve his stop-go penalty. 33 minutes and less remaining. But Daniel Danu is closing the gap. The Spaniard is catching the Mercedes driver. And both drivers in 3rd and 4th are now in the pits. But we can see where John Wells and Daniel Danu are. They're not going to get up to those two. They're going to close the gap considerably. But it won't be enough to make an overtake. And there you go, as demonstrated. Steve Hall now leaving the pit lane. And he's just got to do 4 more laps for Steve. And he'll be on his way to a 2nd podium of the season. Oh, Danny really pushing the car through the mini carousel. He gets away with that. Last lap from John Wells, an 8:37. Last lap from Danu at 8:31. 6 seconds faster, and he is improving. John Wells is also improving, but if we look, you can see a very dark green shaped McLaren looming in the background. As Jordan Harding now clears his stop and go penalty. And that gap's just going to get shorter and shorter if the Spaniard keeps up this level of speed. Every time we get like a long shot, you can just see the McLaren looming large. At the last time split, it was 9.7 seconds. The gap. The gap is 88 seconds, but Jordan hadn't served his penalty then. Let's see what Danu does. 6.7. Well, John knows it's coming. It's just a question of can he keep the McLaren behind him for half an hour. Not impossible. I have to say, it's not impossible at all. The Mercedes, I've mentioned it on numerous occasions, is very quick in a straight line compared to the McLaren. So I'll have to come from a bold move from the Spaniard. Ross Harris is in the top 10. Mark Chapman is 11th. And Josip Kosic is still in the pit. So for Chapman, it's a case of can he close the gap on Ross Harris. 45 seconds. Best lap from Ross Harris is an 8:35. And an 8:34 from the Ferrari man. So that's going to be probably not feasible. So, 10 laps done. 11th lap. We are on so far in this race. Less than half an hour to go now. Steve, 1 minute and 18 behind Tom Creed. And we are now in the last quarter of this race, and this becomes a new dynamic for the drivers. This becomes a battle of concentration and fatigue. This is a fight of endurance. Now that might sound obvious to those that are watching, but realistically for the drivers, they are heading into the tired phase. The drivers' arms are going to be laxing. They're going to be struggling if they're not that fit anyway. Hydration's important as well when you go motor racing, especially around this circuit. Take as much water as you can. They have to stay hydrated, otherwise they're going to be in some serious trouble in this next half an hour. Ooh, as Tony Manley runs wide. But he's in it. He's had a great drive, Tony. He's up to 7th. He's on his own, but 28 minutes away from... Whoa! Commentator's curse strikes. And round goes Tony. He's just about got away with it. I've got to say, I've seen a few drivers clamping the curbs, and we saw that a few drivers did it earlier, but Tony cracked the curb big style there. He's on for 7th place. It's a good job he's got a big gap to Dennis Penders further back, but I was just saying, wasn't I, ladies and gentlemen, it's all about concentration in these last half an hour. The drivers have to be aware and alert, and any lines that are slightly wrong compared to earlier will get cruelly punished. Fortunately for Tony, he had that mistake on the GP loop where there's a lot of runoff, but it'll have woken him up. Running wide, Mark Chapman. There's Steve in 3rd place. It's 43 seconds clear of Jordan. He should be okay, but stranger things have happened. Dennis Penders was 65 seconds behind Tony Manley. That'll be less than that now. It'll be probably less than 60. Tony Sokolov's most recent lap, an 8 minute 18, 7/10 off his best efforts so far. He has been outstanding in this race. He's got 3, probably 4 laps to go. Although, depending on his gap to Tom Creed, he might decide to slow it right down. I'm just watching Tom Creed. Oh, that is... I think Jeffrey Van Buren has just gone back to the pit lane again. But I'm just watching Tom Creed. He's just running a little bit wide there, Sokolov, but he's just gone a little bit slower in that sector. But I'm watching Sokolov because I'm just watching the gap between himself and Tom as they cross the line. It's going to be over 60 seconds. And Tom Creed pits. So Tom decides he's going to get another set of boots on. Which he's got plenty of time to do so, because at the moment Steve Hall is right on the other side of the circuit. He's all the way up by, if the track map is anything to go by, I think he's up by Bergwerk at the moment. And there's Tom Creed literally pulling into his pit box. And Joseph, it's just gone from bad to worse for Joseph, hasn't it? He's just doing this now to get the points. But his race has completely collapsed. Michael van der Waals. Well, at one point we were talking about him being in the discussion for a podium finish, but alas, that hasn't occurred. He made a second pit stop so that he can get to the end. Just looking at the gap, I'm just looking to see where Dennis Penders is on circuit on the other half of the track. So Michael van der Waals looks like he's going to be on for 9th place. It's some good points for him. Could have been better. Could have been even better, to be honest with you, but I don't think he'll mind. Daniel Danu's still closing the gap to John Wells, but it hasn't come down in the same way that we'd expected. Has John upped his pace? Last lap at 8:37. There's a yellow flag out there, but I don't know why, because there's no one stopped on circuit according to the track map. But Daniel, this is going to be the closing fight, I think, on circuit. It's just been a reset of position, so Dennis Penn is 7th, Michael van der Waals 8th, Ross Harris is 9th. I think someone else has just retired, because Mark Chapman's in the top 10. Let's ride on. Let's follow Daniel Danu, shall we? Let's just see who's just retired. We've lost somebody else who was running in that race. Someone has disconnected. And that is a massive shame. We need to find out who that was. Oh no, I think I know who it is. I think it's Tony Manley's gone. Oh, that is that is such a shame. He'd put in a great drive as well. Tony Manley is out of the race with 22 minutes remaining. Oh, after having done all that, you'd be furious. Danu pushing really hard here. Edin Peckman, who also disconnected before 20 minutes ago. He also disconnected, so disaster for the European contingent of drivers that we had. You know, the Croatian and the Italian both out. Danu is closing the gap to John. It's now 2.7. Last lap he was 4 seconds quicker, according to the timing charts. I said before, 10 minutes ago, I said 30 minutes John will have to defend from Danu. It's going to be less than that. But the McLaren can see the base in front of him. The task has been set for the McLaren driver to get after the AMG Merc, although if he runs that wide, he's going to be in more trouble. Ross Harris sat in 9th position. Doesn't have to worry too much about anybody in 10th place because Mark Chapman is a bit further back. Tom Creed still circulating, still doing a good job. Now, if my mathematics is correct here, Tom Creed is 10 points behind Mark Chapman. So, if my mathematics is correct, Mark Chapman will take the lead of the championship, and I think Tom Creed will move up into 2nd place, and Stuart Packham will be in 3rd. And I think there'll only be a handful of points separating them. So this is very interesting. We've got the next half of the season still to go. Josip has now cleared his stop-go penalty. As I was saying, we've still got a long way to go. We're at Spa next week. We've got Alton Park after that. Big smile on my face. That's my home circuit. Suzuka, then the Red Bull Ring, and then Kyalami is our final track. And that is also a 2-hour race, and that's a day to night race as well. But this will be Tom Creed's best result of the season. He got 2nd at Imola. He's going to get 2nd again, so he'll be tying with that. Tony Sokolov on for his 2nd win of the season. He won, of course, at Bathurst. He didn't finish at Imola, but he's well on. He's a 90 seconds clear of Tom Creed now. He is just in another planet as the Ferrari driver. But again, this is the important thing. There's less than 20 minutes remaining, but, and this is key, if any accident happens around this circuit, and it's a big shunt, that'll be it for Sokolov, and he could easily finish off the podium. Jordan Harding, it's going to be as good as it gets for him. I think he's going to get 4th place. Don't think Steve is going to be having any trouble, but it's a good drive. It's a good recovery drive for the Mustang driver. Speaking of recovery drives, Mark Chapman, despite that damage, has done a great job. He is closing the gap to Ross Harris. I've got to say, that gap about 5 minutes ago was 40 seconds. So Ross is still struggling. Do not rule out a 9th place finish for Mark Chapman at all. His pace has been perfectly fine, but we'll have to find out what happened to him and Tony Manley earlier in this race, because those two came together on track at the final corner, and that was it. And then Chapman got collected by Scott Clark, and that ruined Scott Clark's race, so let's see what happens there. There is Steve. A 9.28, obviously serving his penalty on that last lap. We compare that to a 9.23 from Jordan. And I think Jordan will be, whilst they'll be pleased with the 4th place finish, I think he'll also be frustrated about the fact that he got that time penalty, because it could have been a podium for him. And Jordan's another one to factor in for this championship too, because he's 5th at the moment. He's on for some good points. In fact, let me rechange my mathematics from before, ladies and gentlemen, because it could be that Jordan Harding could be leading the championship after 5 races, with Daniel Danu in the mix as well, because those two are on the same amount of points. And I think Daniel Danu's made a 2nd mistake. He was 5 seconds behind John Wells. He made his first mistake. It went from 2.3 to 5.4, and now it's 8.5. So I wonder if Danu has just clocked the wall, and that's ended that fight. Steve Hall will be delighted with this. He'll be in the mix for the overall championship. There's going to be about 6 drivers all together on very similar points come next week. Tell you what, let's do some quick mathematics here. See what we can work out whilst we're here. Tell you what, for someone who didn't start the race on time, Danny Zoutenbayer is going to finish 11th. It's a great result for him. Dennis Penders is going to end up in 7th. Tony Sokolov. Well, don't forget, Tony Sokolov has had a DNF in Imola, and he didn't start the first round of the season, so he's a bit off the championship challenge. But do not rule him out, because he's been exceptionally quick since he joined the championship. Still working out the standings at the moment. Following Michael van der Walt through the GP into Old Circuit. Daniel Danu's gone back into the pit. So I did say before that he'd had an issue because he was with John Wells and he's clearly got damage. So in the last 15 minutes of this race, the Spaniard is going to settle for 6th place, get his damage fixed because he's comfortably clear of Dennis Penders in 7th. But that'll be the end of his jars. And John Wells on for a comfortable best result of the season. What a drive this has been. He's had such bad luck, has John, this season. Excuse me. So just so you're aware, the points situation going into the next few races is going to be absolutely fascinating. If you didn't know, first place gets 31 points. Second gets 29, and then following on it's a sliding scale of 1, so 28, 27, 26, 5, 4, 3, 2, etc, etc. So what I'm doing is I'm just working out where they are as we start to enter the last few minutes of this race. What has been a long race. It's been a challenge, but the drivers are absolutely doing their utmost, and those that are still running that haven't had any technical issues should be really proud of what they've achieved so far. Still not over, still 10 minutes remaining practically in this session, and it can all go wrong from there alone. Now, of course, with the the rules when it comes to the scoring, of course, you are allowed a dropped score, and it's your lowest drop score that you will get points, and that's where the points will come from. So I'm just watching Tom Creed as he ascends the top part of the circuit. It's just gone round the, looks like where he's at the moment is, yes, it was at the top of the track. So at the moment, Tom Creed is just working his way through effectively what is now the left hand of Eschbach. That's where he is with 10 minutes to go in this race. So I'm going to work out what the situation is with the points of the drivers that we have in the lobby. It took me a few minutes just to make sure I've got all the drop scores correct. This will be Mark Chapman's lowest point score at the moment. He's going to, well, I say this. Let's just have a look on ahead. He's 13 seconds behind Ross Harris. He's not 13 seconds behind Ross Harris. Ross Harris is in the pits. Now, does that mean that Mark Chapman will move up to 9th place? Which, if it does, it's is equal lowest score. In terms of race finishes, but he has not raced at Imola, so that would count officially as his drop score. So you get 22 points for today's race with Mark Chapman, which would put him on 103. Josip has had a bit of a nightmare today. He's down in 12th place, so he's also had a DNS as Josip. So his 12th place will give him 19 points. Daniel Danu, he's going to come home in 6th place. That's going to give him an extra 25 points, and that'll leave him level with Mark Chapman. Jordan Harding, so we follow Danny's out via. Daniel Danu running in 6th place at the moment. Jordan Arden looks like he's going to finish in 4th place. Simon Whiting isn't here, so it's going to be another drop score for him. Steve Hall, the man running in 3rd place, he's going to get a nice 28 points. Going to bring him back into the championship fight for sure. Tom Creed, he's going to finish in 2nd. Yeah, there's so many. We have got a wonderful second half of the season to come, by the way, ladies and gentlemen. There's a lot to go. Tony Sokolov on his penultimate lap then of the race. We're following him at the moment. Just getting the standings of the drivers who are here. And Tony Sokolov's going to be on 88 points, which is incidentally the same as Stuart Packham. So if Stuart Packham is a championship challenger, and so is Tony Sokolov. Dennis Penders, he's on for 7th place. It's going to put him actually 7 points behind Stuart Packham, so he's not going to be too far out of it. Everyone else going to be a little bit too far back in terms of the championship standings. So, if there are no incidents between now and the end, which we of course hope there aren't, we have got a titanic scrap for the championship going into the next 5 races. I can give you the top 10 standings. There we go. So, while we've been waiting, let's have a look at these top 10 standings. As it plays out, we have just had another car retire from the session. Hopefully not disconnect. Who's that who's just left? We haven't seen who that was. We've already lost Eden Peckman, we've already lost Tony Manley. We've also, of course, lost Scott Clark. But let's have a look at these Drivers' Championship standings as it stands with 4.5 minutes to go. So, in the top 10, in 10th place we'll have Simon Whiting on 76 points. 9th place we'll have Dennis Penders on 81. Then tied in 7th place on 88 points we'll have Tony Sokolov and Stuart Packham. 6th place we'll have Steve Hall on 94 points. And then this is where it gets very, very close. Josip Kosic will be on 99 points in 5th place. Tom Creed will be 4th on 100. Tied for 2nd on 103, we'll have Daniel Danu and Mark Chapman. But leading the championship on 105 points, we'll have Jordan Harding. Well, well, well. We have a championship fight on our hands. Ross Harris has dropped even further back. Nightmare for him. But we are 3 and a bit minutes remaining of this race. Tom Creed is on his last lap. And to be fair, if Tony Sokolov times this right, if he doesn't want to do a victory lap, he can go as slow as he likes. Don't forget, Creed did make a pit stop. Sort of dropped him even further back from where he was earlier. Jordan's car still clearly has had a nibble on the last lap because he lost 30 seconds. He's fortunate that whilst I've been calculating the points tallies, we didn't see that. Now, the thing with Jordan's car is that he's got quite a lot of front end damage. He is on his last lap of the race. And he's 30 seconds clear of John Wells. I just want to see what the time beam says when John Wells crosses the line for sector 24. Now, if Jordan's losing 6 seconds per sector, that could be troublesome. John Wells, if he gets 4th place, yeah, Jordan's limping. All is not well in that car. And yeah, confirmation that Tony Sokolov is going to put a lap on everybody. To say you've effectively lapped everybody in the time limit is a delightful badge of honour to have. But Jordan's just taking it easy, he's just taking it steady. He's definitely got to manage that damage. Mark Chapman's still pushing on. I think Mark will be delighted with a 9th place result considering how badly it had gone from that earlier incident. He's going to finish 9th place. Steve's just done his personal best lap of the race, so Steve just opening the taps in these last few laps. Ooh, Zout's running very up against the barrier, but he's going to go on to his last lap of the race. He's almost done. So Tom Creed will be the first driver to see the checkered flag. And this is outlining Tom's championship challenge, realistically. He's going to move himself onto 4th place on 100 points. Tom demonstrating that he can put another championship challenge together, just like he did last season. And he is really showing some form today. He's been in a separate class, really, to the drivers behind him. He's comfortably been quicker than everybody else, but he's had to deal with an alien in front of him this evening in the form of Tony Sokolov. But here comes Tom Creed then. Over the start-finish line. His 2 hours of the Nordschleife is over. Well, see, my headphones just dipped out for a moment there, but the other gap to concentrate on between Jordan and John Wells is 19 seconds. John took another 6 out of the Mustang. Now, providing that Jordan doesn't make any more mistakes, he might just be able to limp to the end of this race. We shall see. Should be able to hang on to 4th. Ross Harris has just crossed the line. Michael van der Waal is across the line as well. Steve Hall's going to be the next driver to come along as well. Although, having said this, is this their final lap? They're technically not a lap down. And they aren't. So, yeah, there you go. Confirmation inside the cockpit camera. It is not the final lap. Wow. So, when the timing beam strikes, it comes based off of the driver. That's information for everyone to be aware of. And Jordan Harden's 4th place, all of a sudden, looks very vulnerable. Because John Wells is going to have another 13 miles to have a crack at the back of that Mustang. Fasten yourselves in, ladies and gentlemen. This race is completely on. Where is Sokolov? He's currently working his way up through the next couple of corners he's got coming up. He'll be leading onto the very fast left-hand section that he's got, which will be coming out the exit of Bergwerk. And there he is. Now let's just have a cut back. Now there's John Wells. This is the driver we need to concentrate on. Oh, he knows he's got a chance. He's pushing hard. Be careful, John. Don't throw it off the road now. And Jordan's in the pits. Well, that might just be it. He goes past, and John Wells is up to 4th. The star of the day in the Mercedes is going to be comfortably on for his best result of the season. And I bet you he is having the party of his life in that Mercedes right now. This has been a fabulous drive from the Mercedes driver, and he's going to be well rewarded. He's had a horrible season up until this point. Every single race he's been involved in some form of accident. He even was today. But he survived it. And finally, John Wells is going to get a result that he is deserving of. Wow. What a time to be alive. Ross Harris, he's packed it in. Tom Creed still going. With what is his actually final lap of the race. Whoa! Tom Creed's gone round. He's in the wall. The first mistake of the session. He'd already started celebrating in his head with his podium. And he's got the car turned round. How bad's the damage? Oh, he's lost 20 seconds. It's not too bad. He's just lost it in that quick section between Exmoor and Bergwerk, which is here. And just as it looked like everything had settled down when I'd worked the points out, ladies and gentlemen, it absolutely has changed all around. What it means, though, as Tom gets back up to speed, he should be okay, provided he doesn't do anything daft. With Jordan losing a spot, it means that the top 3 are separated by 1 point. Jordan will have 104, Daniel will have 103, and Mark Chapman will have 103. Wow. Phenomenal. Well, we saw the first error from Creed today in this race. And how far he's going to be behind Tony Sokolov, who is now coming down the main straight. 1 minute and 46. There you go. Let's cut to him if this game will let me. There we go. There he is. He's been absolutely outstanding today. It looks like he might even set a new fastest lap just to rub it in. Tony Sokolov, the Croatian, takes another victory this season. What a drive. Fantastic effort from the Ferrari driver. Outstanding performance today. Comfortably in his own league compared to everybody else today. Absolutely outstanding from him. Still a load of other drivers circulating on track. I think MX boy Dennis Penders will be the first driver to see the checkered flag now. Of course, after our race winner. So a good result for Dennis. 7th place in the end. Could have been even higher had he not had his massive shunt earlier on. But this is still a good recovery from the Belgian. So here he comes, Dennis to the line. That should flash up and say, job done. Yeah, he is backing off. There we go. So the next driver to come across will be the new boy. Oh, Danny boy. Well, despite not starting on time, well done to Danny Zoutenbayer. He's going to get 10th place in the end. Well done to him. And that's a nice set of points to start your season off. It's going to probably lift him to 25th in the Drivers' Championship. So, not bad at all. Whoa, Jeffrey Van Buren taking an alternative line there. Just trying to skip through to get to the man who is going to finish in 2nd place. Well, Tom Creed giving the Ford team a bit of a heart attack there on the final lap, but He's lived to tell the tale, and if that's your only mistake in a 2-hour race around the green hell, I don't think that that's a bad drive at all from him. So he's going to come through these last couple of corners. Just got to get his braking right. He is far enough ahead of Steve Hall. It won't be a problem if he has another error here. But he rounds his way out of the final corner. Tom Creed, your second place finisher of this 2-hour race. And he's back in the championship. Can he go one better than what he did last season? Let's cut backwards now. We'll go down the field. We'll get over to Michael van der Wal. He'll be the next driver on the main straight. Down to Dottinger Ho. Michael van der Wal in the conversation before about potentially getting a podium. It didn't happen in the end when he was running with Eden Peckman. Hasn't worked out for him, but this is still a good result for him. It's one that's absolutely needed because he's had quite a lot of bad luck. And I've talked about drivers having bad luck, but the Dutchman didn't start the first race. He finished 9th at Silverstone. He didn't finish in Bathurst. He got unlucky there. So it's his best result of the season for Michael van der Wal. The Dutch driver is going to cross the line in 8th place. Well done to him. See if we can get to Steve Hall, who'll be the next driver to cross the line. There he is. He's had a perfectly solid run in the Ferrari 296. It's a great drive for him. It's one without any major incidents, and he's going to come home with a podium spot to equal his best result of the season. Your reigning champion putting together the results that he needs to. 3rd place for our reigning champ. And another driver who's in the championship fight as well. Despite having a messy start to this race, Mark Chapman has done exactly what was needed. And he's going to finish in 9th place. He's already had 1 drop scorer's mark. He didn't race at Imola. But he won't care a jot at all. He has had a great performance to recover. He's actually going to finish 8th, but I don't think that's the case. I don't think that will actually happen. Something's just disconnected there, but he will be 9th. Unless the timings have done something different. But nevertheless, Mark Chapman's going to cross the line. He's right in the thick of the championship fight as well. Well done to Mark. And the next car to come along will be Jeffrey Van Buren, but I think he's going to get overtaken by... Yeah, there you go. He's going to get overtaken by my driver of the day. What a performance this has been. Absolutely incredible. He has been in the thick of it all the way through, but John Wells in the AMG Mercedes, the number 69, take a bow, sir. What a result this is. 4th place, comfortably his best result of the season. Well done to John. Cracking effort from him there. Pulls into the pit lane, onto the grass. He's going to go celebrate with the fans. Now, we will have Jeffrey Van Buren crossing the line. So he's just gone and done that. Next up will be the man who should have been 4th place, but instead will be our championship leader going into round 6. Jordan Harding on his new wheel as well. He was pushing the limits. And he found the limits in the end when he put it into the wall. But going into Spa next week, that will be your championship leader in the Mustang. He's had some good speed tonight as Jordan. But just a couple of incidents have stopped him from getting onto the podium. So Jordan Harding, new championship leader. He finishes in 5th place. Good points on the board. We can get to Daniel Danu. Oh, Josip's had more problems. There comes Daniel Danu. He's going to come across the line. Well done to him. The Spaniard will be sat tied for 2nd in the championship standings on 103 points. He's just 1 behind Jordan. that'll be music to the Spaniards' ears. And the only other driver we have left to get to is Josip Kosic, who, despite the problems he's clearly had, sadly, in this race, Josip will finish in 10th place on the road, although he is having a bit of a struggle. But the Swede, despite his issues, will end up 5th in the Drivers' Championship on 99 points. So, all to play for, really. He's only 5 points behind Jordan Harding. So, whilst this race might be one to dust off and forget, he's still going to get the points he needs. Couple of corners to go for Josip. One final corner. It's been a long race for the drivers, but they are going to get there in the end. Josip will be the last to cross the line. There he is. He ends up 11th. And that is your final finishing order. Tony Sokolov takes your victory by 1 minute and 50 seconds from Tom Creed. It's Steve Hall in 3rd, John Wells, driver of the day, in 4th. Jordan Harden, 5th, your new championship leader. Daniel Danu is 6th. MX Boy, aka Dennis Penders, in 7th, with Michael van der Waal 8th. Mark Chapman, great recovery, 9th place for him. First driver of the season for Danny Zoutfire. He's going to end up in 10th. Josip in 11th. Ross Harris comes home in 12th. Jeffrey Van Buren in 13th. Tony Manley 14th. Eden Peckman disconnected, sadly. He will be 15th. Tony Manley also disconnected. Kevin McEntee, I believe he retired in 16th. And Scott Clark retired earlier on in the session. Just having a look to see what the drivers are saying. Steve Hall saying Tony Sokolov and Tom Creed in a completely different league today. And I think that is a fair judgment. Everyone giving some celebrations to John Wells for 4th place, rightfully so. Outstanding drive. Jordan apparently underfueled. That's why he had to make a pit stop. So that makes complete sense now. Well, what a day it has been. What a set of racing we had out on display here at the Nurburgring Nordschleife. No one could hold a candle to Tony Sokolov. He was outstanding from the word go. But can he do it again next week at the wonderful circuit that is Spa-Francorchamps for round 6 of the season? We shall see. I'll be streaming there, of course. We will be looking forward to it. It will be a fantastic race. Let's see how the drivers will cope with a very different challenge next time out. I've been Jack Millington, your commentator for this evening. Thank you very much for sticking with this stream that has been 2 hours and 47 minutes long. I'm going to go and get a breather. When you watch this back, hopefully you'll have a great time watching it too. It'll be uploaded to YouTube later on, hopefully this evening, if not tomorrow. But wherever you might be in the big wide world, have a good one, and I'll see you next week.